thing we also need to read between the lines from the complaint is that we saw that they have alleged, they confirmed with the FBI agent that, who was impersonated in this letter, that that FBI agent had no knowledge of this, did not authorize it, didn't write it, didn't sign it, and that there is in fact no federal investigation of Marilyn Manson and hasn't been. So we already know just from the activity of doing that confirmation that the FBI has now become aware of this fact of impersonation. We don't know if they may have become aware of these other facts as well. But we know from this morning's TMZ update that there has been communication between Marilyn Manson's legal team and the LA County Sheriff's Department. One of the things that the LA County Sheriff's Department will do in the course of a criminal investigation is that if they come up with things that appear to be in the purview of a different law enforcement agency, they will go ahead and refer that out and hand that over to those people to engage in the investigation. So we may be able to assume that there have been some referrals to federal authorities to look into these allegations.
Wow. So they've really stepped in it, basically, if what's being alleged is right.
If these allegations have really any merit to them whatsoever, this is just such a deep boiling cauldron that they have chosen to swim in. It's not good.
What's interesting, and thank you for all of that. That's really just like fascinating, brilliant analysis. And what I'm going to do also, some of those sound bites are so great. I'm going to make little like clips of them, put them on Twitter and Instagram too. But anyway, it's been interesting to me to go online and to see how many people, though, how many like different like articles about this are coming at it from the perspective of it's wrong that he's suing her, that it sets a dangerous precedent for accusers, and it's retaliatory and this and that. And I'm kind of surprised by that attitude, but I guess I shouldn't be. But I guess my question is to you, anticipating the legal process related to this lawsuit and this situation as you think it will probably unfold, from the lawsuit to some of the, like you said, the government FBI, perhaps investigations, referrals, or whatever. Do you think that by the end of this process that it's going to become very clear to a lot of people that Manson was a victim in this? Or do you think that there's going to be this is such a cauldron of stuff, as you've said, that this is going to have to blow up in some way, like they're going to be arrested, or Manson will win the lawsuit or something? Like, do you think this probably has a good outcome, or you can't really say?
I mean, this is all just so crazy. Okay. All I can say is this is some shit. And again, I hate to keep comparing this to Johnny Depp's situation, but there's so much overlap. Sometimes the problem you have, and it's almost a benefit to, people who are so dishonest and so audacious about their wrongdoing, is that it's just kind of hard to believe. And with Johnny Depp's case, I didn't have any problem believing that, okay, Amber Heard is also, also abusive, that she also did all these things.
Right.
But getting me over the hurdle of there was a hoax, there was a coordinated hoax involving multiple people, that just seems so incredulous that it's hard to accept. And so that's why I think it's taken such a long time and so much. You have to be willing to familiarize yourself with the evidence and the facts to really get to that point of being able to accept, like, yes, this sounds absolutely crazy, but there is proof. And so I think, Marilyn Manson is going to run into some of that, a little bit of that same skepticism that this is so insane. How would this apparently successful, apparently good actress, so much to lose by going down this road? How can we possibly believe that she could be so off her rocker as you think? You could do these things and get away with it. It's just hard to believe. And so that's again part of the impact that including the evidence in his initial charging document has had, because it shakes you in a way that him just saying they did these things doesn't have. Seeing it in their actual writing and in their actual communications, composing this fabricated FBI letter, just makes it real in a way that just the bare pleadings don't. So that's going to be the hurdle for him to overcome. And, not just with the public, I would expect law enforcement is skeptical of this too. The difference I think that you have is, we've seen and we've talked about the information environment and the kind of conflict between principled positions and partisan positions that we see in the modern media environment. It's not anything new at this point to point out that once you have a partisan mindset, okay, you've picked a side, you've decided where your loyalties are going to be allied, then facts don't change that. Not only do they not change that, they can often entrench people even further in their partisan perspective. So I think one thing we have to bear in mind as we watch this go forward is, again, temper our expectations about how many people are going to be persuaded by this. The reality is that there's always going to be a core of people who are not principled. They are not interested in finding out what the facts are and applying their principles even-handedly to people they like as well as people they don't like. They're there to take a side and to defend that side to the bitter end. So those people, you should not expect to be able to move the needle with those people. But there is going to be a number of folks in the middle who have only just heard about this stuff in passing, haven't maybe paid all that much attention to it, do care about the principles involved of due process, presumption of innocence, back your shit up. If you're going to make these types of claims about somebody, you better be in a position to substantiate them. Those people are the ones that are going to really determine, what direction this thing goes. Because that's what ultimately a jury is. It's just a group of people. You do your best to pick the ones. Evan Rachel Wood will do her best to pick the ones that are the hardcore partisans that will side with her no matter what the evidence is. Marilyn Manson is going to do his best to pick the people that will be principled, that don't care who either of them are and want to see the right thing done based on what the evidence proves.
Interesting. So a couple of things, you were talking about the fact that it's almost astounding, or it is astounding that Evan Rachel Wood, a successful, actress and so forth, would do something so crazy, or would involve herself in a series of actions that are so crazy. And I think back to the HBO documentary it's coming out on HBO in a couple of weeks, but I've already seen it, like I said. And I think back to, and I believe you have too, right? We both watched it at the Sundance release. But anyway, she talks in there about how she admits that she could not distinguish. She had a real problem. And her brother says the same thing, I think, in this documentary as well, that she had a problem distinguishing reality from fantasy because her father was an actor and also a narcissist, it seems. And she was a child. She was acting from a very early age, was a child actress and everything. And that's a big theme from the first part of that documentary, is that she had difficulty distinguishing fantasy from reality. And I just wonder how much of that figures in now with what she has found herself in, because I do think that Ilma Gore has been the brains or the mastermind. I hate to even use that term for someone who's acted so stupidly, but the mastermind of this operation. And I think what happened is Evan Rachel Wood, she became friends with, started dating Ilma Gore, underwent a very sort of dramatic change in identity and so forth. And I think Ilma convinced her, hey, you could be this big feminist activist. And it worked for a while. She wrote a bill that became a law. She testified before Congress, and she got a documentary made about her. Now, that's the other thing. That's what I want to ask you. What kind of a position does this put HBO in now? Because they have a documentary, a 2-part documentary that is entirely centered around defaming Marilyn Manson, and from Evan Rachel Wood and the accuser's perspective. And I understand that it's hard to sue, a company or win a movie company. But what kind of a position is HBO in right now?
Yeah, I would expect at this point, HBO is far more concerned about what the public reaction is going to be in light of what is now coming to light through this lawsuit. They're just going to be concerned about it from the standpoint of their credibility as a distributor and producer of content. It doesn't make them look good to be associated with promoting, something that apparently may be based on, some pretty serious fraudulent conduct.
Right.
As far as suing them for defamation, I'm sure that there is some pressure being put on them to, point out that this is defamatory. But like we talked about the other day, it's a very difficult standard to meet. HBO is always going to be able to be in the position of saying, well, we weren't there, so we don't actually know one way or the other. And arguably that is kind of how it's supposed to be in a free society with a marketplace of ideas. Right. But yeah, I think like, just like we kind of saw, I don't know, some of us saw Oprah's credibility kind of tanked a little bit after that old Markle interview. It doesn't look good to allow yourself to be used as a purveyor of misinformation and propaganda, essentially. And so you would hope that they would want to avoid that. But ultimately, that's just going to be, like I said, a consideration of public opinion much more than legal consequence.
Yeah, and they had no problem, airing. They have had no problem airing hit pieces before that turned out to be factually problematic, or that was just were completely one-sided. So what else? We have. What else in the lawsuit? Is there anything else that you thought was particularly interesting or surprising or damning? Or as a lawyer, you look at it and you're like, huh.
Oh, the thing that was really funny, I thought, was the swatting allegations, and that Ilma Gore called in a welfare check on Marilyn Manson under her own name. I mean, how dumb do you have to be to swat somebody and use your real name? That to me was it was a real illustration of just how audacious, and I think, I'm not, I try not to armchair psychologize, diagnose people or anything like that, but you just have to wonder at the thought process of somebody who would do something like that, who just doesn't see the danger that they're in. They were completely oblivious to the potential blowback that they were going to receive if this all came to light. It's really like it never crossed their minds that they would be caught.
Yeah. And I think we're dealing with a pathological, well, we certainly are, but with Ilma, a pathological personality, in the sense that she has been accused before, and I don't have time to go into it right now, but of multiple scams and hoaxes in the past. And I'm trying to get an interview actually right now with someone who she's personally scammed, who's talked about her on Twitter. But anyway, that's another thing. But I'm just saying, it seems like Evan Rachel Wood basically hooked herself up with, and I'm not saying that Evan Rachel Wood is not to blame as well, but it seems like she hooked herself up with a really pathological personality, and then just and like a perfect storm of like people coming together in some kind of like awful chemistry, you know? And I think, and that's the thing that's hard for people to get about this case, is that it really is, you're talking about how crazy it is and unbelievable and everything. It really is a perfect storm. And not just with these two, but with the other accusers as well. You know, we could tape whole segments where we get into their lawsuits and look at how ridiculous, you know, some of them are or whatever, because when you look individually at each of them, they're ridiculous. And so you have this just perfect storm of this craziness that all came together in just the right way and at the right time and everything to occur. But yeah. Do you think, yeah, go ahead.
To go back to what you were saying about the documentary as well. So I haven't finished the first part yet. I got about halfway through it and had to move on to other things. But I just found it very striking. Just what an almost open admission of some kind of, you know, narcissism, personality disordered types of traits are just overtly, it's like the storytelling of how a person develops into somebody who will ultimately have one of these types of diagnoses.
Seriously.
You know, just various things I saw from out of Evan Rachel Wood's own mouth. I remember one comment that she made that just slapped me in the face, which is when she said, "I had no sense of identity, but I was so desperate to be seen." And that, I mean, if you could write the epitaph of a narcissist, that's it. It's somebody with no internal core, somebody that wants to be known and popular and loved and admired and all of those things with absolutely no grounding of it in any type of character or deep personality. And so as she goes on to describe how she gets involved with Marilyn Manson, she said something along the lines of how, she wasn't even really attracted to him initially and but they had these conversations, and eventually she started discovering how much they had in common. And she's using this to pitch this grooming narrative, right? That Marilyn Manson was there to tell her what she wanted to hear and support her and reel her in order to get this relationship established. But, you know, I'm not even a fan of Marilyn Manson, and I can clearly see he's the same person that he has always been. Certainly in terms of his public persona, it's not like he wasn't in makeup when she first met him.
Right.
You know? And so to me, this is really a very strong admission of who exactly was shaping themselves to whom in the development of this relationship. And that, once again, is something that you see with these types of personalities over and over. They are extremely fluid. They reinvent their identities. Marilyn Manson is still presenting himself as the same person he's always been. But yes. Evan Rachel Wood has gone from little Lolita actress to serious dramatic actress to activist and, important person on social issues. These are the types of things that just make you wonder if a narcissist is even capable of looking in the mirror and seeing what the rest of the world sees.
Man, yeah, and that's narcissism, and I say narcissism and borderline. I think she's very much like the diagnosis that Amber Heard got, apparently, from their marriage therapist, that she was a toxic narcissist, borderline personality, and And it's like you said, with the fluidity, even with the sexuality. And again, nothing against people who are bisexual and not psychologically troubled, right? But I'm talking about, and it's interesting though that in Amber Heard's case and Evan Rachel Wood's case, you have this absence of a core, you have this extreme fluidity in image and behavior and identity and in sexuality. And so I think that's really, again, like it's Evan Rachel Wood and Amber Heard very similar. And, you know, of course we know Johnny Depp and Marilyn Manson are like best friends. And so I guess they just chose similar women at that point. But no,
well, there's something very attractive about a powerfully sexual woman. And obviously, you know, plenty of women can be powerful and sexual without using their sexuality as a weapon. But it just is one of the common things that you see with somebody who has no core, who isn't even attracted to this person, you know, let alone have some sincere bond and love for this person.
Right. And I agree about, you know, one of the things that I thought, I talked about this in an earlier video that was so astounding about that documentary, that the Evan Rachel Wood Phoenix Rising documentary, is that they spent a good part of time at the beginning, I would say maybe like the first 20 minutes or so, basically trying to establish that Evan Rachel Wood was psychologically disturbed. And I know why they were doing it. They were trying to set up this narrative that she was vulnerable and then Manson swooped in and manipulated her. But in fact, it's exactly like what you said. It actually reads as a kind of a diary or a kind of a manual for the development of someone with a severe personality disorder. And the kinds of things that Evan Rachel Wood was saying about herself, the kinds of admissions that she was making and that others like her brother were making about her, that she couldn't tell the difference between fantasy and reality. Even the reference to the narcissistic father, you know, who clearly is the root of a lot of this. I just thought that was really astounding, and that, you know, so much of this is supposed to be based on Evan Rachel Wood's credibility. And yet they completely just cut her throat almost with that first 20 minutes. It made her look very, very bad, I thought. And so I agree with you. Okay. What else? So this has been really a great interview. So, I mean, I'm happy with what we got, but is there something that we haven't touched on that you want? I'll probably going to break this into 2 parts is my plan, to get more out of it. And plus the shorter videos do better. The one we did yesterday is done really, really well, but just in general, the shorter videos do better. So I'll break it into 2 parts. And I want to start putting up today, like just clips on Instagram, because there's so many good sound bites. You had a lot of good sound bites. But anyway, anything else you want to say or talk about?
I don't think I should have made a list, but I don't think there's anything else about the case that we should cover. I will go ahead and announce that I have lifted my head back up on Twitter. I'm sure I will live to regret it. I'm not the biggest fan of social media in general, but I just, you know, sometimes can't help myself needing to speak up. So Anyway, I am going to try to be a little bit more active, at least through the Johnny Depp trial. Going to probably have quite a bit to say about this case as it unfolds. Yeah. Okay, that's great. Well, that's really good news, I think. And if we can get you on, Instagram. I can open up an Instagram account. That's going to be a tough sell. I mean, I know, but that one is a tough sell. We can only do what we can do. But anyways, yeah, the Amber Heard thing, Johnny Depp trial is interesting, because if that ends up being in some way televised, we were talking about that today on eHacker, you know, if it in some way ends up being televised, that's just going to be so disastrous for her. I mean, because it's going to be a huge story, like every day, like the OJ trial. I mean, not on that level, but it's going to be huge. Every day there will be like footage of some new like admission, or she's going to have to sit there and listen to people talk about her, you know, shitting on beds and stuff. Or I guess you won't have to be there, but anyway. And you know, and the thing about that too is just, it just puts, it's a next level, way for people to evaluate what's actually going on. It was one thing in the UK trial to be reading live tweets and reading transcripts at the end of the day. You don't see the people, you don't have a feel for their tone, their demeanor, things like that. And so for all of this to be out there in living color for people to see for themselves is going to change the dynamic significantly. You know, I think one of the biggest differences between Evan Rachel Wood and Amber Heard, as you pointed out, Evan Rachel Wood is a fantastic actress. Amber Heard, really not so much. And that's going to be an issue, you know.
Yeah.
I think something to anticipate, you know, in both of these cases. I'm not an actress by any means at all, but I've spoken to a lot of juries. I've learned a lot about how you have to be able to connect with people in order to be persuasive to them, in order for them to be open to you and to your viewpoint. And absolutely, rule number one is that you cannot bullshit the jury. You can't, because they will see through it. And as soon as they know that you are being dishonest with them, they do not trust you. They don't trust your position. Evan Rachel Wood, I don't know if she actually believes her own bullshit or if she is just so good at acting that she's able to put on kind of presentation that is persuasive. I kind of tend to think maybe she believes her own bullshit, and that's what makes her so good, and that's going to make her a lot more compelling. It's a lot more dangerous as an adversary than somebody like Amber Heard, who, you know, not only doesn't really believe her own bullshit, but she can't hide all of her little signals of when she has to acknowledge it, you know, when she has to smirk at the video recordings of her admitting to beating up Johnny Depp. It's going to be a very different scenario. We're all really looking forward to that.
My cat is back. That's always a good sign. It's time to leave. Yeah, no, it's going to be astounding. If it turns out to be televised, that's going to be just astounding. We definitely will cover it. But anyway, well, the cat is meowing. So thank you so much, everybody, for tuning in again. And I'm going to have Andrea on here regularly. As you can see, she's got a lot of really interesting stuff to say. Like, I don't even really have to even be here. And sometimes I won't. She'll send me videos. But yeah, so find her on Twitter. I guess she's back on Twitter. And yeah, we're going to be covering the Manson stuff from here on out and covering Johnny Depp and Amber Heard trial. All right. We'll see you. I was always, ask for money. PayPal, Patreon, hit me up. These films take time and effort. They do. PayPal, Patreon, hit me up. These interviews take time and effort, and I appreciate it. So we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.